Good afternoon, YouTube. Or if it's night where you are, then good evening. Now, this video has been in the making for a little while and it's gonna be about Ernest Hemingway. So, the thing is, I don't really know what to say about Ernest Hemingway, so I'm going to let Ernest Hemingway speak for himself because I feel that I don't have I certainly have the guts to sit in front of a camera and utter the words Ernest Hemingway, but I don't have the guts to, how should I say, criticize Ernest Hemingway. I don't. But what I can do is read out a small section from some of his books and let you be the judge of it. So, um, the thing is, I have quite a few Ernest Hemingway novels in my library, and I started my foray into serious literature with the book Old Man and the Sea. And The Old Man and the Sea was the first official adult novel that I read at the age of about 14 or 16, I don't really remember. Or maybe I read it both at the age of 14 as well as 16 because the thing is, I fell in love with Hemingway the moment I picked up that book. Because you see, in my opinion, uh, the book being what it is, I think that only Santiago could have done what um, was done in that book. Only Santiago could have caught that fish. And later on, I found out there's an Oscar nominated movie, an animated short film about The Old Man and the Sea. I will link it, it's on YouTube. I will link it. Do go and see it. Every single panel in that particular movie is hand drawn, and while the credits are rolling, they actually show you a little bit of the making of process. It's definitely worth a watch, and it's a treat to the eyes. There's a part where there's an editing where he's like, the fish is my brother, and then when the fish finally reveals himself by jumping out of the water attached to Santiago's book, the shock in Santiago's voice, such so good is the voice acting, the shock in Santiago's voice, it can't be that big. You really feel those words. You really feel those words. But what I took away from The Old Man and the Sea was that giving up is easy, and if you really want something, you gotta do it, even when, and let me quote Rudyard Kipling over here, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, you know. So the fact that Santiago was being doubted by, you know, everybody, he was being cast off as unlucky. That is what um, I took away from the book. That if you're good at something, if you are truly legendary at something, if you were at one point of time great at something, that greatness doesn't leave you. That greatness stays with you. And I have an example. I have a very big example in the form of my father, who has been in the industry, the engineering industry, the foundry industry, for the past 40 years. And even today, if uh, there comes a time when he walks into one of the foundry belts in India and sits down in an office, the very least the person there will do, even if he doesn't know my father, is pour him a cup of tea. And let me tell you that small gesture of pouring an unknown person a cup of tea and having a word with him, and the amount of blood, sweat, and tears that my father put in to get there, which I've seen him do, it is its own reward in itself. YouTube, it is its own reward in itself. But back to literature instead of engineering. So, what I will tell you about is this book called A Movable Feast. And I have written in this book, I write on the first page of the book. So, there's my name. I always write my name in my book, so there's my name. And what I've written here is Rescued from Blossoms, Bangalore. So the interesting thing is, I was in Blossoms on the first floor. Blossoms is a bookstore in Bangalore. It is not just a bookstore, it is basically paradise on earth. So I was in Blossoms on the first floor, and I was carrying a copy of Jane Eyre by the Bronte sisters, and I was just looking around here and there for something to pick up, something to pick up. Suddenly I find Hemingway. I'm like, okay, let's see. And then I find this. And now comes the point where I yank it out, look at it open mouthed, and then let loose a massive squeal, which causes the girl who's shopping for books with her boyfriend about 6 feet away from me to run at me and ask me if I'm okay. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Because I've just found this. So I'm not okay. I am overjoyed. If I was a cow, I would jump over the moon. Right? And the girl is like, what's so great about this author? At which point, I decided to tell her about this book. Now, this book is about the lead character, Henry. I think he's also called Tenente. It's been a while since I've read this book, but I have read it thrice. But anyway, so the lead character is called Tenente. He's in the army, and he basically deserts from the army because the violence gets to him. And he falls in love and with a nurse, and they have a very loving time together. They have a very special bond, and he wants to marry her. Now, the reason it's called a farewell to arms is because he bids farewell to the army, but he also ultimately has to bid farewell to the arms of the girl as well. So by the time this book ends, and I won't spoil the ending, I won't tell you what happens, but I will tell you this: Tenente is no longer living in the full sense of the word at the end of this book. What Tenente is doing is he's inhaling and he's exhaling. And this is not something healthy, like what you do when you do yoga. This is just inhaling and exhaling. So if you want to see someone, an author, destroy someone, completely shatter him, leave him in pieces, bleeding on the floor, A Farewell to Arms is the book you should read. I also picked up The Snows of Kilimanjaro from Blossoms. This is a collection of short stories. There are some 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 stories. My favorite one would be The Battler, The Revolutionist, The Snows of Kilimanjaro itself. These three are definitely worth checking out. This is also a Blossoms purchase. I got it for 180 rupees. It's a second-hand book, but I got it for 180 rupees. That's a bargain. And lastly, the book I started this video with, The Old Man and the Sea. I got this for 50 rupees from a second-hand book market, and it has been stuck with me for a while now. It is a really special book to me. So, like I said, I don't have the guts, I don't have the privilege, I don't have the, call it what you will, I just do not want to criticize Hemingway, to talk about Hemingway like this is what I wanted to do. So I've gone ahead and done it. What I will leave you with is a little extract from A Movable Feast, which is his memoir of the time he spent in Paris. I will just read out a little bit of the starting chapter, and I will leave you with a quote from A Farewell to Arms after I've read this. So, this chapter is called as False Spring, and this is how it starts. When spring came, even this fall spring, there were no problems except where to be happiest. The only thing that could spoil the day was people. And if you could keep from making engagements, each day had no limits. People were always the limiters of happiness, except for the very few that were as good as spring itself. So that is an example of how Hemingway writes. Are you interested yet? Because if not, let me give you a quote from A Farewell to Arms, which I have memorized, by the way, and it was my Facebook cover photo for a long time. So the quote is, "Hell, I love you enough already. What do you want to do? Ruin me?" To which the reply is, "Yes, I want to ruin you." And the reply to that is, "Good, that's what I want to." So there we have it. My 10 minutes have turned into almost 11 minutes. This video feels a little botched. It feels like I could have done so much more in this video. But to be honest, guys, to be honest, YouTube, I was scared shitless. And so I think this is the best that I can do right now at this moment. But if you enjoyed the video, do let me know. Um, if you want more Hemingway, I will be glad to provide it. And until next time. Oh, and the reason this video is called "Why Sreeja Mitra Called Me a Fucking Idiot" is because um, Sreeja's edition of A Movable Feast has an introduction in which a lot of interesting information about the book is given. Like, for example, apparently Hemingway wanted to call the book The Paris Sketches, but he changed his mind. And the reason for which he changed his mind is given in that introduction. Quite obviously, the thing to do is to get on a piece of transport and go to Sreeja's house immediately and read that introduction. But she called me a fucking idiot because I told her I haven't read the introduction. But have I learned from my mistake? I don't know, because there are some cases when I'm so interested in reading the book that I skip the introduction and then I come back to the introduction later. But yeah, so that's all I've got. And this is a 12-minute video and 12 minutes 15 seconds. So this is the Binge Master signing off. Take care.